Good morning, folks. Mr. Overdorf here from the Landscape Design Classroom. Today we're going to talk about plant identification, terminology, and examples. So, a couple of things you're going to learn about in this video is how to use the Missouri Botanical Garden website, how to look up plants on there, how to look up different things through Google on identifying plants, and how to fill out a plant card. So, to give you an idea what a plant card looks like, that would be one of these guys right here. So over the last couple of years, I've been updating these cards to be more efficient for you guys to take out in the field and use. So you'll notice a couple plants, or you'll notice a plant on each one, and you'll also notice the leaves. So let's jump back in our PowerPoint here. So first couple things you'll see is scientific and common name. The scientific name is the Latin plant name that describes both the genus and species. And the reason that these are so important is because whenever you're looking up different plants from different providers, whenever you're looking at different websites, there's plants with common names that may have 10 or 20 different or even more common names that are exactly the same. So the common name is the name that we typically call it in our area. So today we're going to be looking at the Japanese maple. The scientific name is the Acer palmatum, and then that also comes with a genus or a species variety normally. Just one other thing, as a Nocti question, the person who actually developed this system known as nomenclature is Carl Linnaeus back in the 1700s. So on the left, we have a plant list. These are the plants that you're required to know before you take your Nocti test in this class at the end of your senior year. And on the right is one of our plant cards. Now, the one I just showed you earlier is the updated version, but this one will work just fine for you to work through while you're watching this presentation. So, a few terms that you're going to see on the page. Woody and herbaceous. So, woody is a plant that produces wood as its structural tissue. So, that would be like this guy down here on the bottom left. And then an herbaceous plant uses, it's very fleshy green color on its stem and going throughout, just like here, until it gets to the flower. So we also have trees. Everybody in here knows what a tree looks like. It's a woody perennial plant, typically having a single stem or trunk, and those are typically taller. Our shrubs are smaller woody plants that stay closer to the ground and are typically used to cover up buildings, used for security, all that good stuff. We'll get into that a little bit later. Vines are climbing. They might be used as a ground cover. They have a little bit of a wood stem on them, so that's what differentiates them as a ground cover. So ground covers are low-growing spreading plants that are typically herbaceous or green throughout. So let's take a look at a few different examples, or an example of each one. So on the top left of the screen, we have a tree, which has a trunk on the bottom of it and grows into a really nice plant structure. On the bottom left, we have a shrub, which is still woody on the inside, but typically stays low to the ground, and you can't normally see the trunk on it. On the right top, we have a vine. Anybody knows what that vine is, send me an email and I'll give you a reward. But no, I won't, because it's actually a philodendron. So that's typically just a house plant. And then on the bottom right is a ground cover. This is a green rug juniper. And they typically grow down over top of the ground. So they're really nice to use if you want to cover a lot of area, especially hillsides. So let's take a look at our first plant here, the Acer palmatum. The reason I chose this plant is because it's really nice. It's a really nice looking plant that's typically used as a specimen, and it really grabs people's attention. So specimen plants grab somebody's attention and bring them into the house. So if we take a look on the Missouri Botanical Garden page, which I will show you at the end of the video by taking some screenshots here, on their page, when you look this tree up, under type, it's going to tell you that it's a tree. So if it's a tree, it's almost always woody. So you're going to mark woody at the top of the screen and tree. And just make sure you have marked in the scientific name, Acer palmatum, and Japanese maple. So different types of growth habits. We have deciduous, that's a plant that loses its leaf in the fall and gets it back in the spring. An evergreen is a plant that keeps its leaf all year long. Needle leaves, like over here on the right, those have leaves that are very, very small, very pointy, and don't get very broad. Broadleaf plants, like down here on the bottom right, those are broad the whole way across. They could be all one shape, or they could be serrated in different shapes. But if it's bigger than a needle, then it's always going to be a broad leaf. So mature height, that's going to be the max height of the plant, and mature width will be the max width of the plant. So let's take a look here on our page. So when we take a look here on the right, when we take a look at the leaves, we're going to note that this is a deciduous shrub or small tree. For our purposes on our page, we're going to put in that is a small tree or deciduous tree, and our height, which you can find on the Missouri Botanical Garden page, is 10 to 25 feet in both areas. Now, typically, most trees are going to have a height and spread that are the same, but always take special note whenever you're looking on the Missouri Botanical Garden page to see what that's going to be. So, what kind of forms do we get? We have columnar, we have upright, we have base, spreading, pyramidal, rounded, and prostrate. So, when we take a look at the form of this tree, what are we seeing? So, we have a nice rounded top on it. So, we could say it's rounded. We could say it's possibly spreading. So, let's see what we're going to mark it. So, for this, I marked in a vase because it has a nice vase shape. Spreading, because this tree is going to span out wide over time. And rounded, because we're having a nice rounded top coming out on this guy. So the basic part of this on the form is it's really up to your interpretation. So if you're seeing something here that helps you identify this better than what I've told you, then you can mark that in. At the end of the day, plant identification and these sheets we're filling out are here for you to use to help you out in the field once you start identifying plants out there. So let's take a look at the roots. So typically what I'll use is I'll either do a Google search if I can't find the answer on Missouri Botanical Garden, but most of the time I can find that answer on there. So we have three different root types. We have surface roots, which primarily stay on the surface. We have shallow roots that go just a little bit beneath the ground, but if a windstorm came, it'd blow them right over. And we also have deep roots that tap in pretty far. So what kind of root system do you think this is? In my opinion, we have roots that are reaching about the top of the ground, and they're pretty shallow on this guy. So I would probably say surface and shallow. So moving on from there, different types of leaves. So we have simple and compound leaves. So we have a simple leaf on the left here, and this is the leaf that's coming out on the branch like you see over here. So if we had compound leaves, they would look a little bit, they'd be coming off the branch and more compound type of leaf. So we have alternate, opposite, and world. So alternate kind of jumps like platforms if you're playing a Mario game. Opposite is like if you're climbing a ladder. And then world goes the entire way around the branch of the plant. So what do we have here? So we have a compound leaf and that are also opposite. So you see here on the stem, going from one side to the other, one side to the other, one side to the other, and one side to the other. So what you'll find on the Missouri Botanical Garden website through the description is that its leaf out time is going to be in the spring. Our summer color, this is really up to your determination. I see reds and purples, maybe even a little orange coming out on that. Surface quality, if you get to feel it, is pretty rough. It has a nice serrated edge on the edge of the leaf. The shade it can take full sun. It actually prefers full sun. This is one of the rare plants that if it's not in full sun, its color could actually turn green from not getting enough sun during the day. And leaf drop, their leaves are going to fall off in the fall. So moving on to flowers and fruits, we have 3 different types here. We have showy, moderate, and inconspicuous. So on the left, if you see a large flower on something or a large fruit, that's going to be showy. If you have something you can barely see, that's going to be inconspicuous. And if it's kind of like on the in-between, then that's going to be moderate. So let's take a look at the fruits and flowers on this. So let's start with flowers. So if you're looking at this from really far away, I would say that these flowers are a little bit more inconspicuous. The bloom out time from these, which you'll find on the Missouri Botanical Garden website, is May to June. The color, red. The fragrance, there isn't any. And then looking at the fruits, those are those little helicopters that come off in the at certain points of the year. So typically September to October, I would say they're a little bit moderate because you can see them coming down off the trees, but they're not like super huge or anything. And the color of those is red to green. And these ones kind of show a nice pink. So different types of bark. Now we have a lot of different types of bark here. So smooth, lenticels, vertical, intersecting ridges, uninterrupted ridges. And I'm not going to go through each and every one, but they all have different types on here. So if we look for maples, we're going to see a little bit of vertical, but in this instance, it's a little bit different with a Japanese maple. So when we take a look at the image here on the left, from my gathering, I kind of look at it as the color is going to be gray to green and your texture is going to be smooth. So where do we go from there? So where is the Japanese maple native to? And why is that important? So the area that these came from is Korea and Japan. So the reason that it's important to know where stuff came from is so that you know the USDA zones, which we'll get into later. Can it handle the heat? Can it handle the cold of our area? One fact that makes our area really cool compared to other places in the United States is that the northeast of America actually shares the same climate as Asia. So a lot of the plants that live over there, you can bring here and vice versa. So that's why we can have really cool plants like the Acer palmatum over here in Pennsylvania. So for the rest of your card, I'm going to move this over a little bit. You need to read through the culture, noteworthy characteristics and problems, garden uses, all that stuff. It's really important that you read through that so you can finish out your card and get to know your plant a little bit better. So maintenance for this plant, what you read through here, is going to be pretty low. The perfect pruning time for this is fall to midwinter, whenever all the leaves are off of it. Uses, you can use it. You can use this plant for a variety of reasons, but typically around here and for design purposes, this is going to be a true specimen tree. People really like Japanese maples in this area. If you drive through your neighborhood or through the city or wherever you're from, you're probably going to see a few of these along the street because people really take pride in a really nice looking Japanese maple off the corner of their house or wherever they really like it. The other things that people do with it, they are used for large bonsai, and then people use them for screens sometimes, but I don't really recommend that very much. Growing conditions, we're going to be going over growing conditions more extensively later on this year, but the pH is low to mid. The texture is a sandy loam. Most Acer palmatums that come out of that come into Pennsylvania are actually grown in Oregon and shipped over because they have extremely nice soil that's really sandy and helps them thrive. So once they're here, it's really up to the homeowner, once they're planted, to make sure that those plants thrive and live year to year. Sun exposure, full to part shade. Watering, you want to keep these moist, especially right after planting, so making sure you're watering them once or twice a day. And then they're pretty tolerant of wind. So in the ecosystem, there's really no indicator species that would tell you that there's Acer palmatum in the area. If you see one, you're definitely going to know it's there. One other note heading into this school year is that Acer palmatums are prone to the bagworm. So if you see little cocoons coming off the branches and stuff, you want to pick those off, throw them in a bag, and throw them in the garbage immediately so that they don't destroy and dismantle the tree. So last but not least, at the top of your Missouri Botanical Garden page, you're going to see that this plant thrives in zones 5 to 8. And Pennsylvania here is in zones 4 to 8. So that's really your sweet spot of plants that you want to put in this area. Now we can probably go zones 3 to 9, but I really recommend staying in like that 4 to 8 zone. So any extra comments you'll use in that space below. And that is the end of the PowerPoint, but I'm going to show you two other things. So just to move back to that card for a second. So this is the card that you'll be able to look at, or you'll get, and I will have these posted for you one every single day for you to identify. Whenever you're in class, you can keep them in a folder or you can keep them digitally. But it is important that you learn all these plants because not only for testing, but these are plants that you will use throughout design and for other identification purposes. So up here we have a picture of the tree itself and the leaf that goes along with it. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the Missouri Botanical Garden website. So I'm going to go on this handy dandy Zoom page and we're just going to type in Missouri Botanical Garden. So the very first thing that's going to pop up once you type that into your Google search is their website. So when we get to this website, we're going to see the Missouri Botanical Garden. I'm going to move this guy right back over. And we'll just use our search bar. So Acer palmatum. And the very first one to pop up is the Acer palmatum. So excuse me one second. So once we get into that page, there's a lot of stuff you can look at here too. You can look at more images of it. We can pop up different versions of it. Like I was saying before, there's a lot of varieties of this plant as well. There's a green lace leaf. There's probably 50, 100 plus maybe of Japanese maple varieties. So moving back up, you can see where it is invasive in the United States. And according to this, it's not invasive at all. So you can always just write in no for this one. But that is available for other plants just by clicking that link. And then you have different garden locations and then all the information you'll need to fill out this card. So sometimes you may come across a question for me. So make sure if you have any questions on any of this stuff to please get in contact with me immediately. And I will make sure that you're able to get these cards filled out completely, answer any questions you may have. And other than that, have fun getting started and just make sure you check your Canvas to see what card is due that day. Thank you.